We have today Janie and Alex from UB's Entrepreneurship Law Center at the UB School of Law. Both Janie and Alex are students at the law school. They both will be graduating next year in 2021, which is very exciting. As a fellow UB grad, UB Law School grad, I'm really proud of the work that our students do. And both of them are members of the Entrepreneurship Law Center, which is a clinic that the UB Law School has that is open for startup companies to apply to, and there are some requirements. You can see them online, but if you are a startup and you want the potential to get some legal advice from UB students and their supervisors, all at no cost, it is really a great program that you should take a look into. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Janie and Alex to introduce themselves and get started on this presentation.
Thank you, Jordan, for the introduction. My name is Janie Doe, and as Jordan said, I am a third-year law student at the University of Buffalo School of Law. I focus primarily on transactional law. That's where my interests lie. In terms of what I've done throughout my law school career, I've interned at Barclay Damon and also Davis Polk in New York City, and I plan on returning there upon graduation. And then I'll carry it to Alex.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Alex Kazmarek. I am also a third-year law student at UB Law. I am primarily interested in startup law and IP work, and I hope to be getting my requirements done to sit for the patent bar soon. So addressing all forms of IP work. I had previously interned at PCB Piezotronics, a sensor manufacturer in the Buffalo area, and the Buffalo law firm Lippis Mathias Wexler Friedman. Unsure of my plans going forward, but I hope to return to one of those two. And with that, we're really excited to be here representing the Entrepreneurship Law Center today to give this presentation, and we're going to get started. So I think the first and most important question to ask is, what is a MWBE? And it stands for Minority Women-Owned Business Enterprise. Janie, a little bit later on in the presentation, is going to get into exactly how to qualify for that and what that means on a more detailed level. But on the surface level, it stands for Minority Women-Owned Business Enterprise. So startup businesses and established businesses alike with a primary ownership share in a minority or woman. It was created as part of the Division of Minority and Women Business Development Department, which was created in 1988 to provide developmental benefits to minority and women-owned businesses. Since then, it has done a whole lot, and we're about to get into some of those numbers in a second. But currently, we're standing at about 10,000 certified MWBE enterprise or businesses, and about 700 of those are right here in Western New York. So we have a strong presence here in Western New York, and there's a lot of room for growth. Looking at the Western New York businesses, we can see that the business size is fairly spread out between the less than 100,000 to $1 million range, and then over $1 million, with a little bit more in that under 100,000 range. What that shows us when we were looking into this is that you don't need to be a crazy large business to take advantage of this program and get in there on this. Almost half are in that smaller category. In Western New York, we have about 30% that are minority owned and 70% that are women owned. There is some overlap there, but I thought those were the two biggest numbers to pull out of this. And then what industries do the Western New York MWBE serve? Primarily consulting, be it service or construction, with a smaller percent in construction and 10% in commodities. So those are the primary places where the Western New York MWBEs serve. The statewide growth is pretty strong in these past 10 years. as part of Governor Cuomo's commitment to this, he has committed to trying to raise that utilization rate up to 30%, and we're pretty close. As you look here, in the past 10 years, we have a total amount awarded up to almost $2 billion more than it was 10 years ago, and the percent utilization in the market is up almost 20%. So just like I said, there were 700 businesses in the Western New York area, and there's a lot to grow from there. We can see here that there's being a lot of money invested in MWBEs, and with all indications that that investment's going to continue to grow. Some of the benefits, now that we know how kind of this program has grown, we can look at what some of the benefits are and why did that growth happen. So the Division of Minority and Women Business Development, their mission is to encourage and assist state agencies to contract with MWBEs to actually keep a register. To actually keep a register of all the MWBEs so that government agencies and other vendors are able to quickly access that information in that list. And finally, to promote the business development of MWBEs through education, outreach, different networking events, and the like. So beyond just those contract opportunities, those that are either set aside or given priorities to MWBE businesses, there's special capital support. There's the New York Forward Loan Fund and the Bridge to Success Loan Program. Those are both state funding. And then there are also special opportunities listed on the New York State Alternative Lenders Directory. And that is private lenders that want to lend specific money to MWBEs because they believe in this mission. So that's some capital support that these businesses can gain. Similarly, there's networking and guidance. There are various MWBE centric events, both locally and statewide. And these are meant to bring these business owners together and really build that community, both locally and statewide, so that everyone can grow together. There's also a mentor protege program. What that does is when you have a smaller MWBE who may not have the resources or technical know-how on a certain job, you can pair up with a more established and bigger business to help learn some of those skills so that you're able to grow your business in that way. And then finally, there's some technical assistance that's directed specifically towards MWBE businesses. That includes the Training Tuesdays webinar series and the Business Growth Accelerator. And both of those programs are put in place to help provide MWBE businesses with the technical support that they need to continue to grow their business. I'm going to hand it over to Janie at this point to talk about some of the qualifications and then how you actually apply to this program. Janie, it looks like you're muted.
Thank you. So in order to qualify in New York State and certify as a minority or women-owned business enterprise, you must be able to document a number of things through relevant documents and show those things. One of the most important things, I think, is ownership, operation, and control. So that centers around you being able to show that at least 51% ownership and control is through minority members and or women. Secondly, minority and women ownership must be real, it must be substantial. That basically means it can't be fake, essentially. You can't put a minority and say, hey, this is going to be my CEO just for document purposes, but they're not really controlling anything. They don't control the day-to-day and things like that. Thirdly, minority and women ownership has and exercises the authority to independently control the day-to-day. So that goes back to it being substantial and it being real. You got to be involved in the day-to-day, and that person must be a minority or a woman. And lastly, independently owned or operated, authorized to do business in New York State. So basically, you just have to be authorized to do business in New York State, that entity that is applying for this certification, and it can't be someone else. You can go ahead now. So next, there are personal net worth restrictions. So each minority or women owner they can't have a net worth exceeding 15 million after allowable deductions. So the deductions that are allowed under the law will be your primary residence or mortgage for that residence, ownership interest in the applicant firm, so the firm that's applying for the certification, and then ownership interest in a holding company that will basically get your supplies, your trucking, and things like that for your entity. And then you also have up to 750,000 of any qualified retirement savings plan. So also, the firm must operate independently of other firms, and also it must demonstrate that it's active in doing business, and generally the business must be in operation for a year. In terms of out-of-state firms, out-of-state applicants must should be certified as a MWE in their home state if there is a similar application. So not all states have this application that New York State has. So in the event that they do, you must certify in that state before you try and come to New York State and certify here. So you're probably wondering what it means to have authority to do business in New York State. So you can basically gain that. It's simply a one-page application that you file with the New York Department of State, and it's called a Certificate of Authority. And it's really easy. It's one page, and you can basically do it online. So under Article 15A of the executive law, an MBE is a business enterprise in which at least 51% is owned, operated, and controlled by citizens or permanent resident aliens who are meeting the ethnic definitions. So here I've basically just listed out the definitions that's listed by the state, so you can get a clear picture of who would qualify if you are basically trying to figure out, okay, well, does my CEO, do they fall underneath any of these ethnic groups? So under 15A, WBE is a business enterprise in which at least 51% is owned, operated, and controlled by citizens or permanent residents, aliens. That's basically the same thing that we've said earlier, but that's straight from the executive law, so we felt the need to put it in there so it's clear. And now we get into how to apply. So basically the application is going to vary depending on what type of entity you are, but for the most part, it's a streamlined application. There's several applications for different types of firms. So it's going to be important that you take a look at the different types of applications and see which one would be better for your firm. Here we've included the link that you will go to apply for this, and yeah, you can just follow that. So the link also contains MWBE program information and resources, New York State bid and grant opportunities, event and training listings, and a whole bunch more. So we really encourage you to check out the link and get that application started if you're ready after this presentation. So the new applications and one-step addendums. So this is going to be for your new applicants, someone who hasn't certified previously and are looking to get the ball rolling. It's available to all eligible applicants. And that's in terms of eligibility, that's what I just went through. So you're going to want to make sure that you're eligible before you even pull up the application. So this is also an application with no other, if you're applying with no other certifications. So this would be where you would go for that. Out-of-state firms cannot use this application, unfortunately, and you must have authority to do this, to do business in New York State if you are going to apply here. Qualifying new applicants also could submit 3 addendums. So what that's going to do, basically, it's going to keep you from having to do multiple applications. You can basically connect all of those and attach those addendums to this application. So some addendums that you would be able to do with this application would be the Port Authority of New York or New Jersey addendum, the New York City Small Business Services, and the Joint Certification Committee of Erie County. So some benefits of completing the addendums. So if you're certified in New York State, the application will be forwarded to those other MWBE programs that you choose when you're filling out the application. And also it's like a one-time courtesy for applicants who've never previously applied and are not currently under review for MWBE certification with any other partner. So basically, like I said before, it's a one-stop shop. You can basically do this application and then have it sent over to those other jurisdictions that you want to also have it count towards. So the next application is going to be the Fast Track SBA AA Business Development Program. So the AA Business Development Program is a business assistance program for small disadvantaged businesses. The program offers a broad scope of assistance to firms that are owned or controlled at least by 50% by people who are socially or economically disadvantaged. So this application is going to be specifically for those firms who apply into this realm. And as previously stated, it's available to all eligible firms actively part in the federal AA program. It's only for those applicants. Out-of-state firms can use this application, but they also must have authority to do business in New York State, as previously stated before. The benefits of completing this application, it's pretty short, as with most of the applications, and recognizes firms from throughout the county. So the next application is going to be your Fast Track DBE Unified Certification. So DBEs are for-profit small businesses where socially and economically disadvantaged individuals own at least 51% interest and also control management and daily business operations. So if you fall underneath that category, this is going to be the application for you. And as with most of the applications, your out-of-state firms can use this, but they must have authority to do business in New York State. That's going to be standard going forward. Benefits of completing this application, once again, is short, and it accepts firms from any DBE UCP programs nationwide. So the Fast Track New York State MWBE Certification Partners Program is available to New York State eligible firms who are already certified through a New York State-based MWBE Fast Track partner. So at the beginning of the presentation, we said that this is an application that is offered through many partners. So that the link that we posted earlier is a link for New York State, but there's other partners out there that also have an application like this. So if you're already certified, that doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be certified in New York State. So you would have to do a New York State application. However, you would come to this application because you had been previously certified by a partner. And out-of-state firms cannot use this application. And some benefits of this is many regional and New York municipalities certification programs are recognized. However, we do have our own streamlined application process. So just to make it a little bit easier for you already doing that work on the onset, it's a fast track application that you can use here. And here's just a list of the fast track partners that would qualify for this application. You have your Joint Certification Committee of Erie County and City of Buffalo, New York City Small Business Services, New York, New Jersey Minority Supplier Development Council, the Women's President Educational Organization, and Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. So the recertification process. So currently, MBEs are eligible to apply for recertification 6 months prior before their certification expires. Certifications generally last for 5 years. So 6 months before you know that you're about to expire, you just want to go ahead and start getting the ball rolling on your recertification process. So the eligibility requirements are essentially the same. All requested documents for the online application can be uploaded as PDFs. You should essentially have most of this stuff on hand because you've already done this before. So you would just come here, log in, and upload your documents, and it should be pretty easy because you've already been here before. And just a quick note, your firm remains on the MWBE directory as long as you're recertified, your recertification application is in the works. So there is a application for entities who certifications have been revoked, denied, or you've been instructed to submit a new application for some reason. Maybe something funky was going on and you've been directed to recertify. So the applicants must once again meet all eligibility requirements, and you go on the website basically and you submit a new application. It's not similar to the recertification application because this is essentially you starting from scratch. So as opposed to the recertification application, you might not want to just go and get those documents that you had on hand because essentially something might have been wrong with that. So we would encourage you to just submit everything fresh for this one. And then in the end, we just wanted to put some resources at the end of this just so you can have those on hand. We've listed the MWBE certification unit. That would be the unit that you would want to go to if you had some questions while you were filling out the application. Maybe there was something you didn't understand. We've listed the Empire State Development Division of Minority and Women-Owned Business Development, Erie County City of Buffalo Joint Certification Committee, Office of Minority, Women-Owned Businesses and Community Relations. So these are all resources here for you. Of course, you can also come see us at the Entrepreneurship Law Center. If you fall under our requirements, we would be happy to help you out with any questions you may have. And yeah, that concludes our presentation, and we'll open it up for any questions or comments you may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. A lot of information packed into, just a couple slides. So I'll talk with you after. Hopefully we can get these slides out to the people that attended. I have a few questions that are in the chat. If there are any other questions about this or anything else, legal related, we can try to tackle them, or I can step in and try to tackle them too. I'm going to start right now. We have two questions, and the first one for you, Alex or Janie, is how does the state monitor MWBEs to ensure that people are telling the truth, that it's actually a woman or actually a minority that is running the company?
So the department goes through and kind of double checks all of these. That's partially why the recertification process is in place, just to make sure that the business is actually what they say it is. There's also an initial kind of investigation into it when the application is first submitted, where the department will go through and look to make sure that you meet those qualifications that Janie spoke about earlier. Janie, if you have any additional input on that.
Yeah, I would agree. So for the most part, Jordan, you can step in if you know any additional information, but for the most part, it's kind of similar to just what you said, just the recertification process. That'll be your time to just make sure that everything that you initially submitted is still the same, or if there were any changes that you still would be qualified and you are eligible. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I can add to that. So I've been in practice for over a decade now, and I've worked with startups and I always get this confused. I've been working with women and minority-owned businesses, and I can say from experience that the state is fairly aggressive about monitoring these things. They will ask and they will do interviews to determine and make sure that you actually do qualify. For quite a while, near the beginning of the program, there were a lot of I think, I don't want to say sham companies, but companies that were trying to take advantage of this by having the owner's wife be the CEO, but not actually really doing much for the company, not having much control, and they were very strict about looking into those issues. So, that is definitely something they do. I have another question that came in and is really relevant for what's going on now with the pandemic. Are the offices currently open and processing applications?
I'm actually not entirely sure. I believe they would be open, but I'm not sure if they're open in person. Um, Jordan, what do you happen to know if it's in-person services or if they've gone on the
Yeah,
remote?
personally, I don't know. I think so. For most of New York State, everything is open, but just in a remote capacity. So I believe that they are still accepting applications, that you can still get someone on the phone, although I would expect there to be, some slowdown with the processing. But the program hasn't shut down just because of COVID. There's a lot of people that continue to use it. There's so many requirements on a state level and sometimes a local level, both Buffalo and New York State, for hiring certified WMBEs. So, um, I'm fairly sure that everything is still up and running, but it's probably just a little bit slower than it usually is. But great question.
And that seems right. Looking at the website now, there's no indication that they're shut down. You're still able to access the MWBE directory, and you're still able to access all of the agency contract postings. So on the back end, at least, everything is still operating. And if you do have the certification, you're still able to take advantage of the different opportunities they have posted.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for looking that up. Another question that came in was when we were talking about disadvantaged businesses. And the question was, is there a definition for socially or economically disadvantaged?
So it's similar to the definition that we have for your minority businesses. So in their definition, it's not really as clean cut, but they basically said women and minorities would automatically apply, but everyone else they would have to like see if they would have to submit documentation and their finances and things like that. But women and minority groups, so anyone who would fall under the minority business and enterprises, they would automatically fall into the disadvantaged category. But everyone else would have to submit documentation.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you. We can still take questions. We have about 30 minutes left in the session, and I want to keep it open for questions about WMBEs, but also about any other general legal questions that you have. I'm happy to try to address them with these students. But while I'm waiting for questions to come in or see if there are any questions, I just wanted to take a second and ask Janie and Alex to talk a little bit about what they do at the clinic. What are some of the types of matters that they work on and some of the clients that they work on too. Wait, before you start, there was just another question that came in asking the name of the UB legal organization that assists with companies. It's part of the UB Law School. It is the Entrepreneurship Law Clinic. Sometimes, because that is a very long word, it is shortened to the E-Law Clinic. You can do a quick Google search, and while Janie and Alex are discussing a little bit about what they do for the clinic, I'll go grab that link and put it into the chat. So Alex, Janie, take it away.
So I can go first. So this is actually my first semester with the clinic, and the reason why I wanted to join this clinic was because, like I said earlier, I'm interested in transactional work, and what the clinic does essentially is work with startups and businesses, and mostly we like to focus on minority and women owned entities. However, we do help out with like your general structure of your business. If you don't know, hey, maybe do I want to be a sole proprietor, or maybe I want to be an LLC. So we help with those questions and helping clients basically essentially figure out what exactly they want to do. We help with your organizational documents, formatting and creating your bylaws, your articles of incorporation and things like that. So far, because it's just the first couple of weeks that I've been involved with the clinic, I've mostly helped with those organizational parts of the clinic and with the business. So far I've been able to work on bylaws and formation of businesses. And I'm hoping that as the weeks progress that I'll be able to get more experience and hopefully work on some fun stuff like Alex.
And so to take off from that, I am a returning student in the clinic. So I've worked in it for 2 semesters now. Part of my experiences with the clinic has been the, everything going on with COVID, and because of that, a lot of startup businesses are reluctant to really start up because nobody knows what's going on. So as part of that, well, I'm starting to work on some formations currently. A lot of my work in the clinic has been looking into companies who, are maybe on, or at least trying to be on the cutting edge of some new thing. And a lot of times with cutting edge comes, is this thing even legal? So a lot of the fun things that I've been able to work on are those, is this legal question, and how do I do it so that everything is fine? Luckily, I haven't run into anything that's, real bad, but just being able to advise on those types of questions has been a really great experience. And part of the great thing, one of the great things about working with startup companies.
Thank you. There are, I should mention this too, full disclosure, I am an instructor at the clinic. I teach intellectual property, and I help the students and help the clinic's clients with intellectual property questions. We have another attorney that is also an instructor. Amy is her name, and she works at, well, the name changes all the time. It's Sumitomo, I think, unless it's changed again. But she does corporate and labor consulting for the clinic, and then Matthew Pelkey is the clinic organizer, and he assists with some of the corporate and fundraising questions that come in. So it's a great program. It's one that I'd love to promote more as a really good way for first-time entrepreneurs, students, folks at the university and beyond in Buffalo to get connected, to get some legal advice, and at least make that hurdle to starting your own company that much shorter, because you can get some help and at a really good price. So with that, we may end this one a little early. If there aren't any questions, I'll give a couple minutes for people to ask away. I am happy, I will accept this as a challenge, as an actual, as a post-student attorney. If you have any legal questions, I won't give you legal advice, but if you wanted to talk about these things, I'm happy to answer them now. So this is your chance to ask a corporate attorney for a publicly traded company some questions. I'll keep it open for a minute or two, and if I don't get anything, then we'll...
Question.
Yes.
One question. My name is Dante Batson Griggs. I'm the founder of Spatch, on-demand delivery marketplace based out of Buffalo. I've met you several times, Jordan. My question, what structure would you recommend for new startup company? Would you recommend them staying LLC, or if they want to get more into fundraising, switching to an S corp?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like most legal answers that you'll get, it depends. And it depends what you want to do with the company. So if you're planning on raising money, raising venture capital, taking on investment, my suggestion would be a C corporation, and probably a Delaware C corporation. There's nothing special about Delaware, except for it has laws that are generally more friendly to corporations, and this really strange thing that most attorneys and most venture capitalists are familiar with those laws, and they just prefer it to be a Delaware corporation. It doesn't mean that you have to set up an office in Delaware or anything like that. That's probably the most common if you're going to take on capital. If you are going to own this on your own, you don't expect to have very many employees, you're not looking to take in funding from additional sources, an S corporation and maybe a New York S corporation or a New York LLC are both good options. What does that mean from a tax perspective? An S corporation and an LLC are pass-through entities. So what that means, you know, if you can imagine it like a river, when your company makes money as a S corporation or an LLC, all that income automatically passes through to the owners of that company. So if you make $100, if your company makes $100 on your personal tax return at the end of the year, you have $100 of income that you have to report. It's a little bit different for a C corporation, which has a double taxation or 2 levels of taxation. So for a C corp, your Amazons, your you know, ACV auctions of the world, if they make $100, they get charged a corporate tax rate on that. So maybe it's 20%. So now they have $80. And then if they want to distribute that money to its shareholders, the shareholders have to pay a dividend, or excuse me, a dividend is paid and the shareholders have to pay taxes on that dividend. And that might be another 20% depending. So it gets taxed twice. So from a tax perspective, having an S Corp or having an LLC is a little bit better if you're going to keep the company small. Now, there are exceptions to the rules. There are investors that are happy to work with LLCs and they're happy to work with S corporations. And I should mention this too, it's pretty easy to change from one format to another. Sometimes there's more hoops that you have to jump through to make it happen, but for the most part, you know, any attorney that has experience in the space will know exactly what they need to do to change from one entity to another. So great.
Thank you. Very detailed answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah, happy to help. Anything else?
One thing that I can jump into and explain a little bit more, Jordan, and for everybody listening, is just another look at this series of numbers, and why this matters for new MWBEs that are trying to get into this now. So the amount awarded really comes from the contracts that these MWBE companies are taking on with the state and state approved vendors. So the way that works and why the MWBE status is important is these different state vendors and state agencies, they have certain you know, incentives to work and to contract with MWBE entities, and to kind of bring up the number that they're working with. In 2010, there was a disparity study performed by the state, and they found this number, that 9.9% utilization, was a lot lower than the representative number of companies that would have qualified for this MWBE status. And they found that, you know, even in 2010, there wasn't enough money and enough contracts going to these entities. So that's kind of what I mentioned earlier about the 30% utilization goal. In these past 10 years, and obviously this most recent year might take a little hit because of everything going on with the pandemic, but in these past 10 years, we've seen a really strong growth up to almost 30% utilization. And all of this money is coming for contracting with the state. This is a little bit different than the private loans that we also discussed, but that's also an option, and something that we don't have the figures on because those are all private lenders. But this chart really just goes to show that there's been a lot of growth, almost $2 billion more now spent versus 10 years ago, going directly to MWBEs to work these state contract jobs. And so hopefully, you know, that helps show why this is important, and what some of those benefits are, specifically in numbers wise. So if there are any questions related to that and where these contracting jobs are found, or where even any of these reports are that show these numbers, between the annual reports that show the numbers and the disparity reports as well. We can drop those links in the chat if anyone's interested or if anyone has any questions.
Where can we get a copy of this presentation of everything, the chat and just this whole meeting? It was great. I missed like the first 5 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, not a problem. I think Janie or Alex, would you send me the presentation and I can email that out to, and including the chat, email that out to the people that registered and participated. So that'll be on my list of things to do. It might take me a day or two with the startup week going on, but I'll make sure that this is out to everybody.
All right. Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, anything else before we wrap up? All right, well, thank you all very much for attending. Please take a look at some of the other great events that are going on during 2020 Startup Week. There's some, really fantastic speakers that we have lined up. For the legal track on, make sure I get the day right, on Thursday, we have the Ask an Attorney panel, which I'm really looking forward to. That's where you have an opportunity to ask some more questions to real live attorneys about anything related to startups, your business, or if they have time to fill maybe that parking ticket you got last week, I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to that one, so tune in if you're interested. And I hope you all have a great day, and yeah, enjoy your night. Thank you.